Now, during the 1960s and 1970s, the Miami Showband were one of the most well-known bands throughout Ireland. They constantly hit the headlines for their music and their concerts. Then, on the 31st of July 1975, tragedy struck and the Miami were back in the headlines for a totally different reason. An event now that's well known as the Miami Showband massacre. 42 years on after those events, the Miami are nearly ready to get closure, and they finally got their case into the High Court in Belfast. Des Lee from the Miami Showband joins me in the studio. Des, it's taken 42 years from the tragedy to finally get your story heard in a court situation, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's taken 42 years, as you said, Robin. It's been a long, long process. You know, all we want at the end of the day is to get justice. And I was delighted last Thursday when we were in the High Court to see how well we got on. And I was overjoyed, tears of joy, and I just wish my late wife Brenda was there to witness it. But what we're getting now is we're getting closer and closer to closure. And I believe 2018 will be it. Our legal team were absolutely fantastic. There was over 80 points that they brought up, and nearly all 80 were clarified. There were a few to which the High Court has told those involved that they must produce the documents by a certain date. They were actually given 10 weeks to produce those documents, which brings it into around November. But we're back in the High Court again on the 22nd of September. But what has happened now is the High Court has given the go-ahead for documents to be released to us, which is a big, big move forward. And hopefully next year we will get our case into the High Court in Belfast and get what we believe we deserve, which is justice.
I would imagine these documents are stuff that's been covered up over many, many years. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of shocking stuff revealed, isn't there?
There's going to be a lot of shocking stuff revealed, but I also believe that there will be documents which they may not wish to be released.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, they could be very, very damning to both the British government and the RUC.
Taking you back to getting into the High Court, you're actually suing the government and the army and the RUC.
That's correct. We are suing, yes.
That's the camera. We'll talk about the last 42 years in a minute, but we'll take people back to the start of the Miami Showband, because people watching this, I'm sure there's people who remember the great days of the show bands. They remember going to Romano's and Caproni's and places like that. But there's also young people out there who wouldn't have any idea who the Miami were or about that time. So the Miami, way back in the 60s, were the first kind of band to hit the headlines.
I would say to young people out there today who know nothing or who weren't even born when the Miami Showband was on the road, you will learn so much by looking into the Miami Showband. You can get onto Google, you can get onto so many sites today, and you can learn all about the Miami. And believe me, it is worth learning about the Miami. We were the Boys Zone, the Westlife, the Take That of 1975. That's who we were in those days. We were idolised. We were actually known as the Irish Beatles.
After that came the #1 records, which you wrote with your good friend, the late great Fran O'Toole, didn't you?
Fran O'Toole for me was, for Phil Lynott to say that Fran O'Toole was the best blues singer in Ireland. Now, for that to come from Phil Lynott, that is one hell of an honour. Fran was a brilliant singer, brilliant guy, good-looking guy, so talented. The women loved him. He had long blonde hair. He just had everything. And Fran, to me, would have gone on today to have been a huge star in his own right. Now, he was to leave the Miami 12 weeks after the massacre to go to Las Vegas for a music convention where he was going to be launched as a solo artist. Now, I was writing songs with Fran. I wrote his album. I wrote his #1, which is called Love Is. And Fran was so talented. And I was looking forward to here I am, I'm going to America, I'm going to Las Vegas, and I'm going to be writing songs with Fran O'Toole. So I saw stars in my eyes, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
So 31st of July, you were playing the Castle Ballroom in Banbridge that night. What was that gig like?
That was a fantastic gig. You know, the thing about Northern Ireland was one of our favourite places to play in. We were always very popular in Northern Ireland, even the days before Fran with Dickie Rock and all that. Well, there were so many ballrooms that we appeared in. The Flamingo in Ballymena of Sammy Barr, God rest him. What a character. I used to always say, you know, don't knock the rock. No, and he made the best hot dogs in Ireland.
Right.
He was fantastic. We went to Miami, Las Vegas.
You played Carnegie
LA.
Hall,
We played Carnegie Hall, New York in 1972 on St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
Now, to stand on that stage in Carnegie Hall in New York was an absolute honour. To think that we stood there, that lines up with me, with my appearance in Belfast, when we went to the Opera House in Belfast. Now, the two venues that stick out in my memory and will till the day I die was obviously the Carnegie Hall in New York and the Opera House in Belfast. Why the Opera House in Belfast? I'm a Belfast boy. And when I was a kid, I used to walk past the Opera House and see Cliff Richard, Tommy Steele, Tom Jones, Lulu, all those big names up in the lights, not knowing that one day I would stand on that stage in Belfast. And I don't know if people remember, but we went an absolute storm of the concert in the Opera House in Belfast, and we got a standing ovation. And not only that, I was flying out the next day to Spain. I got to Belfast International Airport and I got a telephone call from my brother-in-law, Dan Daly, to tell me, have you seen today's Belfast Telegraph? And I said, no. He said, do yourself a favour, go and get it. I said, why? Just go and get it. I went and got the Telegraph, and there's me like the Pope with my two hands held out, standing on the front page of the Belfast Telegraph. And that was one of the greatest honours ever in my life, to think, here I am, my hometown, in front of my own people, standing on one of the greatest stages in the world, the Opera House in Belfast.
And that night as well, at the Opera House, I mean, you had some pretty big names on the bill who came across to join you guys in your celebrations, the likes of Les McEwen from the Bay City Rollers. Dana was there, wasn't she?
Oh, it was a big night for all of us. Brendan Boyer was there as well. It was a huge night. And of course, Brendan Boyer, we backed him.
Yeah.
And he turned around and said to us, don't tell Dickie about this. Don't tell Dickie about this. You know, that we were actually backing Brendan Boyer. So it was a big honour to back him. And also Les McEwen. We backed Les as well from the Bay City Rollers.
We were talking about 1975 there, so we're going to go back to that, the night of the Castle Ballroom. You left the ballroom that night, and like any other night, it was just a normal travel in the van back to Dublin, as you guys thought, wasn't it?
Well, you know, during all the years in Northern Ireland, I mean, I was in the band nearly 13 years. So the amount of times we would have been stopped, whether it's Derry, Londonderry, whether it's Belfast, whether it's Bangor, no matter where it is, we would periodically be stopped at roadblocks. Now, the obvious thing was they would check the van, they would ask questions like, where were you tonight? Where are you going to? Etc., etc. So we would answer all those questions, and basically we were quite used to it. So to that night of the 31st of July 1975 in Banbridge at the Castle Ballroom, we were leaving the ballroom to travel back to Dublin for our next gig. And everything was routine. The gig was finished, sign autographs, talk to all the girls, chat the women up. So then we would go and have a cup of tea and a sandwich and get ready to go home. Now, Brian Maguire had packed all the gear. He was a roadie at the time. He had packed all the gear, and he'd got in his minibus and he was heading back to Dublin. Now, a couple of the ladies, which was a standard thing at the end of every gig, you get ladies coming up and asking you for a lift. Now, Brian decided he would take the two girls in his van back. They wanted to go to Newry.
Yeah.
And thank God he did.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank God he did after what happened to us. So we got in the minibus and we headed down towards Dublin. And as we got to Buskill, which is very close to Newry, we were flagged down in what we thought was a normal roadblock. We were pulled over and we were asked to get out of the van, and the usual thing, the usual questions: where are you going to? What is your name? What's your date of birth? Where were you playing tonight? All the usual questions which we answered. We were facing the ditch, and what we didn't know is that two of the gang were putting a 10-pound bomb into the van. They put the 10-pound bomb into the van, but prior to that, I had asked them, could I go to the van and take my saxophone out and put it onto the main road and open it and let them see it's a saxophone, which I did. There was 5 of us in the line. The 6th member, which is Ray, the drummer, had already gone home to Antrim that night in his own car.
Yeah.
So instead of me going to where I was in the line, 3rd of 5,
Yeah.
I went to the end of the line, which was next to the minibus. The 2 gang members were putting the 10-pound bomb into the van, which exploded prematurely, which blew me into the ditch. And there was a massive explosion, and all I heard was screaming and the opening of gunfire. There was mad gunfire gone off. And I was blown into the field, and I lay down, face down in the grass, because I've been watching a lot of Vietnam War movies and watching the GIs. The soldiers, American soldiers who used to do that, lie down in the grass and hold your breath for as long as possible, which I did. Now, all around me, I could hear crying, gunfire. The ditch was on fire because of the van. And I just stayed there. And the first thing I did was silently call out the names of Fran, Bran, and Tony, and I got no response. I called out Stephen's name, and I got a moan. So I knew that Stephen at that stage was still alive. And I said to Stephen, I'm going to go and get some help. But I had to wait as long as I could. But at one stage, the fire from the minibus was coming right up to my body. And I realized if I stay there any longer, I'm going to be burnt alive, so I had to run.
Yeah.
So I, not knowing what was going on around me, I ran up the ditch onto the main road. There was a lorry there. There was 2 gentlemen in the lorry. I said to them, I'll get on the back. And it was a trailer.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even let me do that. So then a car came along with 2 young people in it, and they took me into Newry. But as I was going into Newry with them, I was so tense and worried about everything going on around me, I didn't trust anybody. So what I did was I held onto the door handle of the car, and if they weren't going in towards Newry, I was ready to jump out of the car at the first opportunity. But thank God, 2 lovely, lovely people took me straight to Newry Police Station, where I ran in the door screaming and shouting and telling the police officer, who was a lady, please get help out to Buskill. There's been a terrible tragedy out there. Some of my friends are seriously ill. There's been a massacre. There's been gunfire. There's everything. It's a terrible, terrible scene. And the lady told me to calm down, explain everything to her, which I did. She then said, we can't send people out there straight away. We will have to send helicopters to survey the area in case we get attacked when we go out, whether it's the ambulance or the security forces, which I understood. But anyway, so then she sent me into a room and she called for a doctor. The doctor arrived and he realized I was in a terrible state, and he gave me some Valium to calm me down. But what I did with the tablets, and he gave me a glass of water, I took the tablets because I didn't trust him. I didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And I took the tablets, put them in my sock, drank the water, and he didn't know that I'd done that, obviously. He came back about an hour later, and he did the same thing. Give me more tablets and a glass of water. I did the same thing, put them in my sock. And, you know, I just felt so sorry for Fran, for his family, and for the other families as well. Such a terrible, terrible tragedy to happen to guys who were nothing other than musicians. And by the way, musicians who were going to venues, north, south, east and west, into areas of all denominations, all colours, all creeds, entertaining people for 2 hours to give them some fun, some laughter during that horrible period in Northern Ireland. And that's all we were doing. But people also didn't understand that the Miami was a mixed band. We had Protestants in the band and we'd Catholics in the band, but we got on so well together. We were a band of brothers.
It was all about the music. There was never politics discussed or anything.
Politics was never, ever discussed. All we talked about was music. We ate, slept and drank music. That was us.
Yourself and Stephen Travers were the survivors. And after that horrendous time, you tried to get the Miami back up and running again, but it wasn't the same without your friends, was it?
We put the band back on the road after about probably 3 months. And the first gig, funny enough, was back in Sea Point at the Sea Point Ballroom. And we got on stage that night. Look, don't get me wrong, it was an incredible night. The place was jam-packed solid. The doors were closed. They couldn't get any more people in. The band was great. The band looked well. As usual, the Miami always dressed well, beautiful suits and everything. Great program, great show. But when I looked around the stage, Fran wasn't there, Brian wasn't there, Tony wasn't there. This just wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
I missed the guys. With all due respect to the guys who were standing on the stage with me, I had no problems with them whatsoever. It's just how I felt. This was not the Miami to me. And I just, after a period of time, I decided, no, I've had enough of this. I'm leaving. I'm going to form my own band, which I did. I left and I formed my own band called the Des Lee Band with Julie, and we called ourselves Star Band, and we were managed by none other than Louis Walsh.
Wow.
He was our manager, and what a brilliant manager he was. He really was. He had us working solid right north and south of Ireland, and we had a great band. We had a great time. We had fabulous musicians in the band, including none other than Angus McAnally on guitar. Now, Angus was a fabulous musician. Great, great band. And but once again, I didn't feel right because I couldn't go and play in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
This is my hometown.
Yeah.
And yet I can't go and play in Belfast. I mean, that to me was awful.
There was threats put in at that time against you as well, that if you had have come back to Belfast, something would have happened to you.
Well, I lived with that threat. And that threat kept inside of me and it never left. And eventually, as I say, I decided, no, I can't handle this. I can't appear in Belfast anymore. If I can't go to Belfast, if I can't travel freely, my life's not worth anything. And I want to leave this country. And I decided in 1982, I'm going to leave Ireland and I'm going to go somewhere. I didn't know where at the time. I got on to an agent in London Management Agency, who I'd been dealing with through the years. And I asked them, could you please get my band somewhere in the world to do a residency or to tour? And they came back and they said, look, we've got several countries we can send you to Canada, we can send you to Australia, we can send you to Dubai, and we can send you to South Africa to the Holiday Inn circuit. Now I got on to my sister Lorraine, who lived in South Africa, and she told me it was a wonderful, wonderful country. And the fact that I had family there, that got me influenced to go and look at South Africa, which I did. So I took my whole band to South Africa and we toured on the Holiday Inn circuit, and we were a massive, massive success in South Africa. And I didn't have to look over my shoulder, and I didn't have to worry about standing on a stage anywhere in Africa. And it was a wonderful feeling.
The memories of the 31st of July 1975 never go away, do they?
Never. Absolutely never. And even to this day. I live with this every day of my life. Now, what I mean by that is I have, for example, I've got photographs of Fran, Bren and Tony in my apartment in Belfast, whether it's in my bedroom, whether it's in my lounge. So I live with it every single day. And it keeps coming up. The court case now has gone on. We're going into 42 years. So 42 years is a long, long time. Now, we don't know how much longer this is going to carry on for, but me personally, I will live with this tragedy until the day I die.
People watching this are probably thinking, why has it taken so long? Why has it taken 42 years to get to this stage?
Well, you only have to look over a lot of cases in Northern Ireland over the years. Everything, quite a few cases, pushed under the carpet.
Yeah.
You know, which is despicable to say the least. Now, the fact that the Miami is now getting justice after 42 years is fantastic. But I feel so sorry for so many other cases in Northern Ireland, whether it's north, whether it's south, with the Dublin bombings, Monaghan, Omagh, all the people that maybe will never, ever see justice in Northern Ireland. Now, to me, that's wrong. To me, that's wrong. The HET should never have been disbanded. We need people there standing up for those people who never got justice. And I hope and pray that those who haven't got justice so far one day will, please God.
Now, there's some very good charities out there as well, which you're becoming involved with, aren't you?
Yes.
Tell us about those.
Well, basically, at the end of the day, I'm getting involved with VSS, Victim Survivors. I'm getting involved with Wave Trauma Centre. Anyone that wants my help, I'm willing to help. Now, one of the things that I would love to do, I would like to go to schools in Ireland and be able to stand up and talk to children in the schools, showing them slides on a big screen of the Miami massacre, showing them and talking to them about the fact that violence doesn't pay, teaching them all about peace and reconciliation and how good it is to get involved with your brothers, Protestant and Catholic. I believe school should be integrated more, and we should not be talking about religion in school. And one of the things I believe we should be doing a lot more in school is music. Music is a bonding together, no matter what religion you are. So I would love to go around schools and telling kids and preaching to them all about peace and reconciliation, and do not get involved in violence, drink, or drugs.
I know as well there's a Netflix documentary in the pipeline too.
Now, I didn't believe this when I heard it, but one day I got a phone call to say that there's going to be a movie, a documentary, done by Netflix. Now, I thought it was a joke, because Netflix are one of the biggest companies in the world. And I learned that this was no joke, this is for real. Netflix got in touch with me and they explained everything to me, that they're going to do a documentary, no expense spared. We've got the top producers in the world involved, and they've already been over to see me in Belfast, and I can't believe what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. This is going to be massive. And to be honest with you, I can't wait to see it. But at the end of the day, it'll teach them all about the horrible things that have happened in our beautiful country. And please God, may the peace continue, the Good Friday Agreement. It's lovely for me to come back from South Africa to now be able to walk through the streets of Belfast without looking over my shoulder. It's a wonderful city, wonderful people, and long may it continue.
Des, let's hope we can have you back in this studio in about a year's time from now, when the court case is over, you finally have that closure after 42 years, and you can move on to the next chapter.
Yes, I look forward to that. I look forward to that. I look forward to be back with you, Robin. And hopefully, as I say, we will have justice. I believe 2018 will be my year, please God, with Netflix and with the Miami, our court case complete.
Des, thank you.
Thank you, Robin.